welcome to today's meeting of the City Council Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Martin Brooks, Chair of the committee. Just to tell people that this is what's known as a quasi-judicial committee, which means that members sitting here on the committee are here representing the council as a whole and not representing their wards. They've all received mandatory training in this position. I confirm that everyone who is at the committee today has received that mandatory training. We have some speakers on reports today. I understand that the objectors on item 6 have not yet arrived. We don't know whether they are arriving, but what I'm proposing to do is to take items 7 and 8 first, and then take item 6 later in the agenda to give people the opportunity to come. Just to remind members that you don't have parliamentary privilege, so be aware of that in terms of your contributions at the meeting. And can I ask everybody to switch off their or put their mobile phones on silent. So we're on to item 1 of the agenda, which is notification that this meeting is being webcast on YouTube, etc. Item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations? Councillor Marsham.
Yeah, on item 7, just to flag that I previously met with the owners of Star City several months ago in my capacity as a ward councillor.
No other declarations. Any apologies?
Councillor Barry, Chair.
For Councillor Barry and Councillor Mumtaz. Okay, thank you. Chair's announcements. I don't have any. Item 5 minutes. We've got 2 sets of minutes to confirm and sign. The minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of February. Is it agreed that I confirm and sign them as a correct record? Happy with that? And the minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of March. Is that agreed also? Thank you very much. Can we therefore move to item 7, which is planning applications in respect of the Northwest area, Star City? Are there any updates for you to give us?
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. No updates, but a couple of notes of clarification for members might be helpful. Just for clarity, you'll see use classes EG3, B2 and B8 referred to in the headline of the report and in the description. Just for your clarity, use class EG3 is for uses which can be carried out in a residential area without detriment to its amenity and covers specifically industrial processes. Use class B2 is for general industrial use for industrial processes other than one falling within class EG, but excludes incineration purposes, chemical treatment, landfill or hazardous waste. And use class B is for storage and distribution uses. Secondly, the objection highlighted in your report at paragraph 5.2 has been fully reviewed by Transportation. The application and the support transport assessment makes no reliance on use of the private road through the adjoining industrial park. All modelling assumptions and officers' assessments are based on the access and egress to the proposal using the public highway network. An informative is recommended to remind future owners and occupiers, should you approve this application, that Jarvis Way is a private road with no right of access. And finally, the development attracts no seal, and the conditions listed in your report have all been agreed with the applicant and agent. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members on this one? Councillor Marsham.
Utilising the underused car park to provide 250 jobs is to be welcomed, and hopefully those roles will be taken up by local residents. What we do need to be mindful of, though, is the more HGVs on the local roads, and we need the police to clamp down on the dangerous boy racers who often hold their meets nearby. So it's disappointing actually that we lost the noise camera that was proposed for that area, because it would have stopped the people revving their engines. But that's a separate issue. But I'm still very mindful to approve.
Thank you, Chair. overall, I'm supportive of the application, but I was concerned around the car parking because certainly my experience over going to Star City is it's a nightmare to find a parking space because the sheer volume of people that attends. I appreciate the report suggests that there is sufficient parking on site, but it wasn't quite clear as to how much has been lost or whether any of that is going to be replaced elsewhere because it is a considerable loss of car parking from my understanding of the report. And I couldn't really see the detail of that within the report itself. So it would have been quite helpful to have what the actual figures were rather than just suggesting there was sufficient space to meet demand, because certainly that's not my experience of visiting there. My concern is in relation to the replacement McDonald's drive-through, because if my understanding of the map is correct, we're suggesting that those who want to queue for the drive-through and leave the drive-through are all going in the same direction because of the one-way system. And my experience with McDonald's drive-throughs is that often there are extensive queues, and that doesn't sound a sensible idea to have all traffic going in one way, because and it would certainly suggest it could cause congestion with people trying to enter and leave in the same direction. So whether that needs to be reviewed to ensure that doesn't have a wider impact.
Much the same as Councillor Wall said. I do have concerns about the parking spaces. I don't go there all that often, but when I do go there, there's always a massive issue with parking and in and around, especially around that McDonald's area, because it's quite busy, people going in and out of McDonald's. So yeah, I would question as to how many parking spaces are going to be lost and how many are going to be subsequently gained. But overall, I do welcome the business and the impact it's going to have on the area. So thank you very much.
Anyone else want to? The officer back to respond on some of those points.
Yeah, lots of car parking in my intentional place, so I'm trying to open up. I'll give you a precise parking number. Obviously, in terms of assessment, the parking provision is considered to be satisfactory to service and development, and obviously, in addition to losing the spaces, a travel plan is proposed, and also encouraging and facilitating the use of alternative ways of accessing the site to reduce the need and reliance on the car to access these facilities. In terms of the McDonald's, the replacement McDonald's has been approved. Yes, there is one access into the Star City site, maybe not 100% clear due to the site of the plan, but basically as you enter the railway left into an internal roadway, completely fall up McDonald's drive-through restaurant. They didn't access the rest of the site, rather continue on to the parking showing south of the main entrance to Star City, or continue onwards to the multi-storey car park and the application site that's subject to this proposal.
So
We're just trying to get the precise car parking figure.
Okay.
Over my internet. Sorry.
My concerns were about the configuration of the McDonald's car park itself, not the access off the roundabout into Star City.
Okay, understood. Yeah.
In terms of the McDonald's permission, the car parking to configuration that has been approved under the prior permission was considered to be acceptable. The road and standards does not represent.
Okay, I'm going to put this to the vote then. Can I see all those in favour? There are 10 votes in favour, no votes against. That is carried. So it's approved with the conditions laid out in paragraph 9. Thank you. We then move on to planning report 8. The report on 75 to 79 Lancaster Street. Just give the officers a moment to settle in. Any updates on it?
Thank you, Chair. No, there's no updates on this item.
Okay, I'll throw it straight out for any questions or comments. Councillor Jones.
Had the increase in the height of the building, we had gone through. I can see why some change in design is fine. The skyline of Birmingham, I'm not too, I don't, it looks like we're looking, more and more tall buildings. This one had been accepted at a certain height, and now I'd just like to know what the justification is to add them on, the extra height.
Okay. Any other comments? Councillor Marshall.
I'll keep banging the drum on this. We need more purpose-built student accommodation in our city to serve our fantastic universities, and it's where students want to live. This scheme redevelops a vacant brownfield site, and its design and the increase in height makes the area a bit of a cluster, so I think it's to be welcomed.
To comment, Councillor?
Yes, Chair. I mean, I think Councillor Marshall, I mean, what people want and what people can afford are two very different things, and I think it's worth bearing that in mind. So, as a student myself, I couldn't afford to live in halls, so I had to live in HMOs, and therefore it's important we remember that. And I would say that we need to advocate more for affordable student accommodation in the same way that we do for affordable housing. Because quite frankly, all the schemes that I've seen come forward are the high end of the market, and there's very little provision for those on lower incomes or disadvantaged backgrounds. I do welcome this application, given that it's already had approval for student accommodation. If we are going to provide more of it, it makes sense to stick it on a site that's already got permission for that. But I particularly want to comment on the change to the brickwork, which I think would be a nice contrast to the Onyx site across the road, because my concern is that the two would look very, very similar. I do appreciate the change in material on that.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? I bring the officer back.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I actually dealt with the 2018 planning application for the original scheme for a student housing development on its site. And at the time, that was the scheme that was put forward. And as I say, that was, getting on for 4 years or so. And I think the tower is more slender by going up that extra 7 stories on the tower. And since that original concept back in 2018, a number of other developments that have come forward along that section of the main route into the city. And you have now a cluster of tall buildings, or an avenue of tall buildings, as you approach the city centre. And the city centre itself has grown since the original consent back in 2018. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to put it to the vote. All those in favour? And in favour? No votes against. That is agreed. The conditions laid out in paragraph 9 with condition agreed. Thank you. So we now moved on to item 6. As the objectors have not been able to come to the committee, there will be no public speaking on this agenda, on this item rather. Updates.
Thank you, Chair. We do have 2 updates on the application. We have received updated comments from the Leeds Local Flood Authority that have now removed all objections from the application, subject to the inclusion of 2 pre-commencement conditions. This would be for a scheme of sustainable drainage, which would be inputted under condition number 27 on the report. And the second condition is a scheme of sustainable drainage operation management, which will just look at the ongoing maintenance and adoption. That would be put on the report under condition number 28. These conditions have been looked at by the applicant, and they're broadly in support of those being attached. The second update, I've actually just spotted a typo on the committee report. It's paragraph 7.27. So it specifies that there's an oversupply of car parking by 49 car parking spaces. But actually, this is a typo. It's actually 37. So whilst it's not an oversupply of 49, it's still an oversupply of 37, which is still a significant oversupply. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Moore.
Thank you. First of all, I look at that such thing as an oversupply of car parking. The additional spaces is welcome. So, but overall, I do welcome this application. It's a shame the Irish Centre had to relocate out of the city centre in its long-established home, and it's important we support it in its new location. And I'm very much of the view that this will do that, as well as substantially enhance the supporting provision, particularly on construction of Gaelic football, I think, which is particularly welcome. I would also like the fact that whilst we are providing a 3-storey hotel on the site, it is located in the right location and away from the residential properties, so it doesn't dwarf them. So I do think it has been very well thought out in that sense. That being said, I do acknowledge the concerns that local residents have raised, and clearly a more intensive use of the site will understandably have some sort of impact on the neighbouring residents. And I do hope that the Irish Centre will work with those residents to ensure that that impact is mitigated as much as possible, and to be a good neighbour, which I'm hopeful they will do.
That's a Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Having relocated, I think the Irish Centre is making enormous efforts to settle into their new environment and to serve old and new customers. I think the enhanced and new sporting facilities are exciting and built on the legacy of us hosting the Birmingham 22 Commonwealth Games, so I'm mindful to approve.
Any comments on this? Or?
I suppose it was just to come back on the relocation of the Irish Centre. So I suppose it was originally in Digbeth, but the added value of it being in this location is it has access to a designated Gaelic football pitch, which actually sort of increases the provision it can offer. I think there's been a number of concerns raised about residential amenity in terms of an intensification of the use of the site. I think it's important to remember that it's an established sporting facility with the planning history dating back to the 1950s and 50s. So it's quite an established authorised use, which is currently through the proposed works. And because of the intensification of the proposed works, it would actually introduce a set of residential amenity than the current situation. So through the use of acoustic fencing on the eastern boundary, I think there's also in terms of the in terms of hours, whereas the existing pitches can operate hours they wanted to. But there would also be other conditions that would come forward. Security management. It would also introduce isn't there probably sort of be more. I think there's also the intensification that we can secure through the development.
Very much. I'm going to put the recommendations to you that are in paragraph 8. All those in favour? That's passed with 10 votes in favour, none against. So it's approved with the conditions listed in paragraph 8. Is there any other urgent business? Being none, can I move the necessary authority to chair and officers? Thank you very much. Close the meeting.